You're watching COVID 360. I'm Sneha Murdani. On the show today, B.1.617, the variant of the novel coronavirus first sequenced in India, is fast spreading across the world. India says we warned the entire world about this. Up ahead on the show, we'll also tell you about Sputnik V and how much it is going to cost. Another pharmaceutical company, Wockhardt, is ready to manufacture doses of a foreign-made vaccine in India. Exclusive interview with its chairperson is also up ahead on the show. First up though, B.1.617, the variant of the novel coronavirus sequenced in India is spreading globally. India's top scientists have predicted how this variant will dominate the world. Unfortunately, this variant with a higher transmissibility is spreading to many countries. Take a look. Sequenced in India, but not necessarily an Indian variant, says India. Nevertheless, B.1.617, a variant of concern first found in India, is well on its way to dominate the globe. India had warned against it. Is this the most dominant variant in the country right now?
Yes, by and large, it is either already the most dominant in state by state, or it is rising. Given its advantage over the other variants in terms of being able to replace them because of high transmissibility, it will be a relatively safe guess to say that in time to come, this will be the dominant strain wherever it is not already.
Pakistan has cases. Vietnam too has reported this variant. Victoria in Australia is getting locked down because of it. The list of countries affected by this variant is endless. The World Health Organization says, all in all, more than 53 countries have reported cases of this variant. The World Health Organization is also tracking 4 variants of concern in totality, which are often referred to by the country in which they emerged, a practice that India, among other countries, oppose.
A virus does not necessarily respect them as long as people are moving. And the reason we are choosing not to say Indian variant is a correct one. The country that sequences a particular variant is not necessarily the place of origin.
Okay.
I mean, the B.1.1.7 could have been originated somewhere outside UK and could have been sequenced first in UK. One does not know. In fact, even the Spanish flu never originated in Spain. It probably started in China, somewhere over that, more than 100 years ago. One thing I can guarantee you, 617.2 is going to spread all over the globe, just like B.1.1.7 spread all over the globe.
But as they say, what's in a name? The fact is that this variant has got the world worried. It is a variant of concern. Now, to be classified as a variant of concern, it must pose a risk to public health over and above the original Wuhan virus. This could be due to changes in transmissibility, disease severity, its ability to evade detection by viral diagnostic tests, reduced effectiveness of treatments, or an ability to evade natural or vaccine-induced immunity. The WHO is tracking 4 other variants of concern which are often referred to by the country in which they emerged. The B.617 viruses are divided in 3 lineages. It's B.1.617.1, B.1.617.2, and B.1.617.3, of which B.1.617.2 has the highest transmissibility and reduced neutralization.
So as you might be aware, B.1.617 is now B.1.617.1.2 and .3. Of these 3, .2, 617.2, is the one that is rising the fastest. It has the highest transmissibility. By transmissibility, we mean how many people will one infected person infect. And you've all already seen that now entire families get infected compared to earlier. So 617.2 is more transmissible than other variants. And severity, however, does not so far appear to be clearly greater. We think that simply a very, very large number of people got infected, which is why we saw a total number of severe cases also going up. Now, as the numbers are coming down, the average severity does not seem to be any greater than it has been in the past.
Will vaccines work against the B.1.617 variant? A recent UK study has found that the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine was 88% effective against this variant 2 weeks after the second dose. 2 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were also 66% effective against this variant. Experts say it is important for vaccination to continue. The idea is to ensure that maximum amount of inoculations happen while there are low levels of virus circulating, so that the new variants do not emerge that and subvert the vaccines. The higher the levels of virus in the population, the more likely it is that a vaccine evasive variant will emerge. In New Delhi, Sneha Murdani for India Today. Delhi will see over 45,000 cases of COVID in the third wave. 9,000 hospitalizations might just be needed, says a report that has been prepared by IIT Delhi. Well, that is one of the 3 scenarios as per IIT Delhi. The report also says the medical sector needs to be ready. The medical industry says it needs the government to step in right now. Take a look. Delhi will see a surge and it could challenge the national capital once again. That is what a report submitted to the Delhi High Court by IIT Delhi says. Surge in cases up to 45,000 a day, with 9,000 hospitalizations every single day can be expected. Prepare for the third wave is what the report is suggesting. The suggestions include building oxygen storage capacity, looking at supply of oxygen from outside Delhi, preparing a portal for the same, ensuring compatibility of nozzles, refillers, capacity evaluation, planning manufacturing units for oxygen production, and addressing shortage of cryogenic oxygen tankers. Overall, scenario building plan the infrastructure requirements for COVID third wave.
The IIT Delhi Department of Management, in its detailed status report before the Delhi High Court, has flagged 9 specific areas of concern, which includes not only oxygen transport, distribution and storage, but also the online databases and apps created by the Delhi government to keep track of the hospital beds, oxygen, medicine, etc. availability. In addition, the IIT report also says that the third wave of the pandemic could be even more infectious and could require even more hospitalization, beds and oxygen for the city. The Delhi government has assured court that their plan for COVID management going forward will take into account all of these areas of concern.
The report says there could be 3 scenarios. Third wave scenarios. Number 1, same as peak patient load of COVID-19, second wave. Scenario number 2 is 30% increase in patient load over scenario 1. Scenario 3, 60% increase in patient load over scenario 1. The medical industry has approached the government saying the need is to stockpile COVID essential medical items to face the third wave, same as at least 47 of them. Experts are saying there is an urgent need to create a stockpile of 25 to 30% of the annual national demand and warehouse it in the 4 geographical zones.
We've been recommending to the government to create a stockpile which should be 25 to 30% of the annual procurement by the central and state governments as a national stockpile at 4 different geographical zones, and to create a production-linked incentive scheme which is more important for the MSME sector to ramp up the production of these critically needed 41 COVID medical device items and to reduce GST on the 18% COVID medical device items to 12%.
The 47 essential COVID items that the industry wants stockpiling of range from air mattresses to swabs to digital thermometers, masks, PPE kits, glucometers, among others. The industry has also said there should be a reduction in GST from 18 to 12% for 40 medical devices.
As we saw with the PPE and the COVID test kits, India has to depend on itself. We look forward to the Government of India announcing some encouraging schemes for the local manufacturers to boost sales and stockpile of the essential items.
These projections made by scientists for Delhi and for different parts of the country help in assessing the situation. It puts the focus back on where we need to prepare. It looks like that the third wave is inevitable. The idea is to ensure that no reaction is knee-jerk and that this time around the virus doesn't get the better of us. With Anisha Mathur in Delhi, Sneha Mordani for India Today. Half of COVID-19 patients with secondary infections are dying in hospitals. They would have survived had there been better hospital practices and also had there not been antibiotic misuse in hospital settings. I decode ICMR's report on secondary infections. A study done by the Indian Council of Medical Research says hospital infections and secondary infections are causing deaths in COVID-19 patients. The study done across 10 hospitals shows 56% of COVID-19 patients with secondary infections have died due to bacterial infections or fungal infections. It was found that half of the patients who had developed the secondary infection had died. These were patients in ICUs, and this study was between the period June to August last year. The study has shown that many COVID-19 patients develop a secondary bacterial or fungal infection during treatment or after, and these have led to death in over half of the cases. Importantly, the spurt in cases of black fungus, also white fungus, has been seen now. During the time of the study also, there were cases of hospital-acquired infections and cases of black fungus.
Secondary infections in hospital is a concern for any hospital. As secondary infection prolongs the hospital stay to 2 to 3 weeks for every patient, and also it worsens the outcomes as well as it increases the medical expenses for that particular patient.
Out of the 17,534 patients, 3.6% developed a secondary bacterial or fungal infection, and mortality among these patients was at 56.7%, which means half of the COVID-19 patients with secondary infections are dying in hospitals. The study has also indicated that there is growing drug resistance, and this had a major role to play in patients developing secondary infections. Experts have warned against irrational use of antibiotics.
Because these patients are already on good antibiotics to prevent a bacterial infection, sometimes bacteria which are smarter than most people believe can grow despite these antibiotics and therefore turn to be super resistant bacteria, and therefore these patients can then suffer from very, very resistant bacterial and fungal infections.
The mortality rate was also manifold in case of secondary infections. This reflects the susceptibility of those acquiring these infections. Blood and respiratory sites were the most common sites of these infections in COVID patients. A few weeks ago, the Union Health Ministry approached the states asking hospitals in states to ensure that they implement all the protocol and follow all the guidelines for hospital infection management and do the needful, given the major concern around an increase in both hospital-acquired infections and also fungal and bacterial infections that is also being seen in the second wave of the pandemic. What is also worrisome is that the ICMR in this particular study has indicated that all of these deaths could have been avoided had hospital management practices been followed well. In New Delhi, Sneha Mordani for India Today. In a big boost for India's vaccination drive, Sputnik V is going to be in the markets from the second week of June. Apollo hospitals have announced Sputnik V's rollout in their hospitals, and here the vaccine is going to cost about 1,195 rupees per dose. more private hospitals are mulling a rollout soon. Take a look.
Recovering from the second wave, India has got a big booster in its fight against COVID-19. The third vaccine, Russia's Sputnik V, will be available in the market in less than 14 days. Apollo Hospitals has announced the rollout of India's third vaccine from the second week of June.
Currently, we have 150,000 doses of Sputnik. As far as the pipeline is concerned, the overall number is 250 million vaccines, which is 125 million people doses. So that is the number which we have, which will be rolled out over the next 8 to 12 months in India. And this will happen progressively over a period of time.
Each dose of vaccine will cost 995 rupees, while 200 rupees will be charged as administrative cost at Apollo hospitals. Meanwhile, pharma company Dr. Reddy's maintains it is the sole distributor of first 25 crore doses of Sputnik vaccine in India, making it clear that it has not entered into any partnership or collaboration with any party to supply Sputnik V vaccine to Residential Association. Since this is the vaccine that is stored at -18 degrees, experts say its transport and logistical issues will make it available only in private facilities for now.
We will work on economies of scale. We are working on the India advantage, and we are also working on a variant of the vaccine, which is the 2 to 8 degree product. It's not a variant per se. It's the same vaccine which we are also testing for a 2 to 8 degree stability condition. So if we have the 2 to 8 degree stability in place, we will not have to store and transport it at -18 degrees, which we have to do currently. If we get the right data on that, we should be able to save on the logistics, transportation, and the cold chain cost as well.
The Russian Direct Investment Fund has recently announced agreement with 5 companies in India: Panakia Biotech, Warsaw Biotech, Stelis Biopharma, Hyderabad-based Gland Pharma, and Hetero to produce multi-million doses of Sputnik V. With Sputnik being available in India soon, India, that has been grappling with vaccine shortage, may finally get the lifeline it needs. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, Wockhardt is committed to supplying COVID vaccines at a reasonable price, says Habil Khorakiwala, the chairperson of Wockhardt. He's spoken exclusively to India Today. He says private companies are wanting to step in to bring in vaccines. Now, not just Wockhardt, Cipla is also keen. While talking about Wockhardt, the company says their plant can manufacture any type of vaccine except Covaxin. Here's why. Domestic pharma company Wockhardt is close to signing a memorandum of understanding with the foreign vaccine company for technology transfer to manufacture COVID vaccines in India, besides offering its own domestic vaccine capacity with potentially 2 billion doses a year for the sender. The founder and chairman, as well as the group CEO, Habil Khorakiwala, is now with us. Thank you so much for your time. Wockhardt is set to ink a pact with a foreign vaccine company for tech transfer. Which company are you in conversation with?
As I mentioned to you, you're right that we are already doing a tech transfer. At this point in time, since we have not signed an agreement, which we process of signing in next few weeks, it's difficult for me to mention the name of the company because of our confidentiality.
So by tech transfer, essentially you mean that the technology can be given to you and you can develop the same vaccine and manufacture the same vaccine at Wockhardt, is what you're suggesting?
You are right, absolutely.
Okay. So besides offering your domestic vaccine capacity with 2 billion doses a year for the center, what else is on the cards?
See, what we have suggested to center is the following. Okay, we would like to create this kind of capacity. We do not have. We have partly the capacity we are creating immediately with techno transfer. And we have promised government that we will supply at affordable and reasonable price, which government is mentioning, to all the government institutions, center government, state government, or any other government institution. Second, we mentioned also that India has a great potential because we manufacture today in India about 50-60% of global vaccine requirement. That capacity is only 2 billion, 2.5 billion so far. Because of pandemic, emerging market minus Western countries and China, 5 billion people, you need a more than 10 billion capacity. And that is what we intend to play the role. And we ask for government help for two things. One, basically, is that we receive some kind of financial support, which they readily agree. Second, we said you help us in getting some additional technology transfer so that we have capacity to manufacture 2-3 different kind of vaccine.
Okay, so you are expecting the government of India then to facilitate this technological transfer?
Yeah, we would want government to play its role to facilitate some technology transfer for at least 1 or 2 vaccines.
Okay, it's time for a quick break here. Much more news in just a bit. Vaccine passports by way of WHO pre-qualification. Well, Covaxin developers say it's a myth and that pre-qualification is required only for wider acceptability outside India. But it is unlikely that Covaxin is going to get this pre-qualification from the WHO anytime soon, since its third phase efficacy data is not ready yet. The WHO is asking for it. So what exactly is WHO pre-qualification and why is it really required? Take a look. India's Bharat Biotech has submitted data to the World Health Organization for pre-qualification. But the company has insisted that it is not a requirement for a vaccine passport. Company sources, while speaking to India Today, have said that there is not a single country that has said that any Indian using Covaxin will not get to enter their shores till the time the vaccine gets a pre-qualification. The government of India says the same.
इसके ऊपर डिस्कशन चल रहा है कि क्या वैक्सीन को जो लोग वैक्सीनेटेड हैं हम उनको कंफर्म मानते हुए उनको अलाउ करें। अभी भी वर्ल्ड लेवल पर WHO गाइडेंस है या जो जितने देशों की गाइडेंस है वह केवल टेस्टिंग कि अगर आप नेगेटिव कोविड टेस्ट लेके आते हैं तब उसके बेसिस पर है।
As Bharat Biotech awaits emergency use approval from the World Health Organization for COVID-19, the company has said it hopes to get Covaxin on the World Health Organization's emergency use listing by the 3rd or 4th quarter of this year. In a statement, Bharat Biotech International Limited said application for EUL has been submitted to WHO Geneva. Regulatory approvals are expected July-September 2021. Most countries recommend vaccinations against COVID-19. Unvaccinated travelers can travel with negative RT-PCR tests prior to travel in the absence of any country-specific travel restrictions.
It is important for the vaccine to obtain pre-qualification from the World Health Organization. This also probably expands the manufacturer's capacity to export to many other countries apart from just India.
Pre-qualification is a procedure adopted by the World Health Organization to ensure supply of quality assured products. It has its origins in the expanded program of immunization, which had started globally in 1974. If a country wants to purchase, it was neither feasible nor affordable for every country to verify the quality of the vaccine produced. Therefore, member states mandated the World Health Organization to start an initiative to certify that a product met agreed international standards in quality, safety, and efficacy.
The WHO stamp of approval of Covaxin is an important step in the global recognition of the effectiveness of this vaccine. It will give India and the other countries the confidence to vaccinate its people widely, not just this year, but also in the years to come. Also, Covaxin is probably the cheapest vaccine available, and the recognition of its effectiveness means it could actually become the main global COVID vaccine in the long term.
Experts believe that eventually Covaxin, like all other vaccines, will require pre-qualification, not just for global acceptance, but also from the point of view of vaccine passports, though the Government of India and the World Health Organization say that there is nothing decided on that front. Right now, the priority seems to be access to global markets and also acceptability to other countries for Covaxin's makers. In New Delhi, Sneha Murdani for India Today. That's it in this edition of COVID 360. Until next time, stay safe, be well. Thanks for watching.